Vanyukov, and we're going to be talking about what's happening in academia. And that's not just we're not just talking about college universities. There are also academic societies that are affected, and that's why Dr. Michael Vanyukov actually sees a lot of this. Now, I'm amazed by what came out this past week in the College Fix. The College Fix ran an article entitled "Professor from Soviet Union Warned Anti-Racism Agenda in the United States is Rehashing of Marxism." And in the start of this article, Dr. Vanyukov, you state that let me make sure, yeah, you state that race has taken the place of class warfare in the narrative. What does that mean?
Well, just like Marxists in the Soviet Union used your class origins, whether you are from working class or from the bourgeois class or a millionaire class, whatever, uh, to make judgments about people, regardless of what they are, what they were by themselves, what they represented. To them, the class origin was the main criterion. Here, as you have seen, race has become the main criterion to make judgment about the individual, so that if you are white, you are inherently racist. This is what is maintained by people like Robin DiAngelo and Ibram X. Kendi. And if you are from, say, so-called minority, even though I don't understand why people even would call themselves a minority. I mean, the individual is just an individual. But anyway, if it's a minority, then this individual is inherently persecuted, oppressed, and so on. And the difference, of course, between the class-based persecution and promotion and race-based persecution and promotion is that class is in principle changeable. You may become a worker, a proletarian, even if your parents were millionaires, but you cannot change your race. So in a way, that criterion is worse than class. And of course, race is as irrelevant to say anything about an individual as class is.
So basically, it's become so destructive. What again is the ultimate purpose here behind these type of directions where they're trying to split us up? What is it? What do you see as a real purpose behind that?
The real purpose is power. The real purpose is to establish a totalitarian control over the society, the same way as Bolsheviks did. And this purpose is sort of, I would say, successfully being achieved by the divisions of the society into small groups, whether they're based on race or they're based on the so-called gender identity or whatever. So the more the society is divided, the easier it is to rule it, just like the Romans would say, divide et impera, divide and rule.
That's pretty much it. That's how I'm seeing it. It's nice to hear a scholar say it. I wish there were tons more who are catching this. You caught one thing that I think I am seeing locally too as well, which is I'm seeing it at a Christian college locally. Roberts Wesleyan has created a diversity and inclusion and equity office, and I'm really upset with that. But the diversity office at the University of Pittsburgh stated it is committed to fostering an anti-racist culture and beyond to address systemic racism and advance racial equity. It also called for the dismantling racism in higher education across all institutions and communities. You called these statements problematic. Why?
Well, to put it mildly, uh, I have not seen, that has never been proven to me. And I've tried to read. I've tried to read this Ibram X. Kendi, uh, the Robin DiAngelo book, the what's it called, the White Fragility. I've attended an online uh, seminar that she participated in, and I've heard, nor have I seen, any proof of any systemic racism, uh, of anything like that that would need to be dismantled uh, in the way that uh, one can imagine racism is. Moreover, I think that this notion of anti-racism is a misnomer, because it actually is racism, because it assumes that, just like this white fragility thing of D'Angelo's, it assumes that the race determines the way of thinking, and that's just plainly horrible. It's, again, it's like the Bolsheviks, who assumed that class determines your way of thinking. And I've heard D'Angelo talking about this anti-racism. What basically what she says is that she thinks of herself as a racist, and so she said. Uh,
I think we lost your video.
it was somebody calling on my phone. And
Okay.
I declined the call. So she said that she was a racist, but because she actually assigned, uh, she ascribed racism to everybody who is so-called white, which is another thing to talk about. That means that she's just one of them. So her personal racism that she admitted to doesn't mean anything anymore. She wrote a book, White Fragility. What else do you need from her? And now she's, of course, what's it called? Getting dividends of that book very conveniently.
Is she black or white? I'm not familiar.
She's white as white comes. That's just a regular white woman. But she says that she's a racist. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, she's racist,
Yeah.
and she's telling us she's racist. Okay, deal with yourself. Don't
So,
put the blame on everybody else.
well, it's very easy to deal with oneself when everybody is just like yourself around you. That's what she says. So everybody white is a racist. So she is, and since she is ahead of everybody admitting it, she's basically exculpated for her own racism.
Interesting. I would have thought the person. I would have thought. I mean, that kind of still blows my mind. I've been
Well, if
listening to
you
this
if
stuff.
you get if you get pretty big money, because her book is, I think, that mandatory purchase by every university library in the country. If you get your book sort of into that position, you may talk about yourself whatever you are, whatever you want to call yourself. You get your good money, and you must be happy. That's what she is, I think.
That's a big point. Yeah, yeah. If you can force people to buy your book, yeah, probably doesn't care. She probably doesn't believe anything in the book. If that's the case,
Well,
just cares that she got it
how
out.
how can you believe this ideological garbage? It's just not possible, and it's a play. It's a game that people play.
I've actually got asked to index a book that preaches along these lines for, and that was intended for human resources organizations. So I looked at this, and there was more racism in there against. It was racism against white people, racism against black people. It was just, and to say it was problematic with the way it was written is probably an understatement. But I couldn't. I mean, to think that these actually are being fought. This type of book is actually being sent to academics. I guess that's a big thing.
So I think, Paul, if I may, uh, we are stuck on race. It's very easy to be stuck on race, and this is what the ideologues want actually, uh, for us to think about this and that, race, gender, schmender, and so on. But what what actually is going on is, again, there is lust for power, for a totalitarian power. Last time we spoke about anti-Semitism in academia, and anti-Semitism is simply a part of every basically totalitarian society, because Jews are historically and generally perceived as the sort of proverbial the other. So once somebody wants to establish a totalitarian power, it just cannot help but being anti-Semitic, and so it's just, different sides of the same coin. It's lust for power, for totalitarian control.
It's quite a statement. I think that's exactly it, because you don't see this push for division without that lust for power. I think you're right. Anything that you think we can do to fight this in academic circles?
We, I mean, however skeptical I am about the eventual success of any such fight, because for a simple reason, is that the progressives are much more tightly organized than the conservatives. The conservatives are individualistic by design. Progressives are not. They tend to toe the line again. But nevertheless, I think that the fight is possible, and the main thing that is needed is to speak out. Don't be silent. You have to be careful not to be not to give people the means to accuse yourself of the so-called racism, even though eventually I think everybody is going to be accused of that. It's just unavoidable. But there is a way to talk about it. There is a way to speak out, and this is what needs to be done. Silence is really mortally dangerous. That's what I think.
I I, I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Exactly.
I totally believe
Exactly.
silence is deadly, and it's deadly to your freedom and your belief and your understanding of freedom. And it does, in a totalitarian society, can end up in your own death.
Absolutely.
And gulags and things, sorry, those those come after the deaths start. They have to have a place to put you after they start killing by the larger numbers. But
Exactly. And
yeah,
sometimes you don't even need gulags. When the gulags are needed to uh, to make everybody to toe the line, to make thinking uniform, to remove everybody who is dissenting. But in this case, in this society, the means of information transfer are progressive. The universities, another means of information transfer, are progressive. The the ideas that dominate in the society are already progressive. So it's just a matter of taking, physical control. That's all there is to it.
it's scary. I mean, to see that I mean, you've seen both. You've seen the totalitarian side, and to see that this country that I grew up in, and you've been here for a while, and to see it heading down that line, just kind of, it's scary. And I don't know what else to say but that it's scary.
It is.
Wow. As far as standing up for students, is that advisable or not these days in a college?
Well, it's very difficult to sort of. I can express my opinion, of course, but it's very difficult to be insistent on that. The reason is that uh, I I am to a large degree um, invulnerable. I am quite difficult to attack because I'm tenured and I'm close to retirement anyway, and my career is done for all intents and purposes. Okay, but those who have yet to go ahead, to grow and so on, it's much more difficult for them, and it's much scarier for them than for myself. That's why I say that there is really no courage in what I'm saying, despite all the feedback that I receive. It's not really courage. It's just the need to not be silent. Nevertheless, I think that people who can find it in themselves to speak out, they shouldn't be silent, and they need to find a way to express themselves so that they are not endangering themselves as much as possible. I think that if if I if I were less cautious, for instance, that letter simply wouldn't be published, for instance. Okay, I think so. I think that there are words that you can find and still be impactful.
Thank you. Dr. Michael Vanyukov, we have to have you back soon. Please don't stop fighting. And I'll just ask, please, I don't think we can handle you being silent because I think we need your voice. Thank you
Let me
for
just say
standing up.
one thing. Uh,
Yes.
I sent the link to that article, the in the college fix to a colleague,
Yes.
to an older colleague. He responded to me, Michael, be careful. They will be coming after you. So that's the thing that we should be really afraid of. N- to be afraid of. It's like the Roosevelt said, there is one thing to fear. It's fear itself.
Amen. And as Jewish people and Christian people, the only one we're supposed to fear is the living God. We are
Exactly.
not to fear man.
Very
So if you are a Christian or a Jew, I'm sorry, your responsibility for fear belongs to God. And we're supposed to look at God as in control. And if man can't handle it, that's too bad for him. But we know
Amen.
who's in control.
Amen.
God bless you, Michael. We
That's
will have you back soon. Thank you.
Shalom.